what's the word? I'd say a skeleton presentation. And that is this: I'm going to make you uncomfortable a little bit, because when speaking to a room of this size, my experience is that a lot of what I share might be influential to some of you, and then others of you are like, that's not applicable, Mr. Wassner. What are you talking about? This is a waste of my time. So what I'm trying to do here is give some general overview about, all right, student engagement. I work with students as young as 4 and 5 and as old as 17 and 18. It's a wide range. So I'm trying to cast a wide net and give you some ideas about how we can increase our student engagement as it relates to environmental science. And then the uncomfortable part is I would love to get into a discussion at the very end, maybe the last 10 minutes or so. But as I talk about this, I hope it inspires something within you, question, or a problem that you have in your specific area. Because my guess is, based on talking to Allison Zidell, who invited me to come today, talking to her, this is a room filled with people who might be primary educators, secondary educators, that might work as a naturalist, might work at a university. So that's kind of what my plan is, what my goal was when I was kind of evaluating how to talk to this group of people who, yes, environmental science is one niche, but within those, there's a lot of different areas to study. So I would love for, as I talk in generalities, if you have a specific example on which you are struggling with maximizing student engagement, or you'd like more details on something that I kind of refer to on a large 30,000-foot view, I would love to get into a 5 to 10 minute discussion at the end of this time, where we can kind of help each other. So, yeah, there you go. She's gonna pull that up for me. Thank you. Like I said, this is almost all words, just very, very short and simple. I hope to kind of expand upon that. So I started at Traders Point about 4 years ago. COVID interrupted the outdoor education program with us. So really, I feel like this is about my second year of doing it. So I took on some other roles. So it's very new for us. But we decided to do environmental education for the sole purpose of, we have a beautiful campus with a wetland and enriching woods and other things. So I don't have to take a field trip to go do outdoor education. I just walk outside. So it allows us to be able to have immediate access to this. So that's kind of where my Traders Point outdoor education background is. Before that, about 10 years ago, I visited Africa for the first time, and then I went again about 5 years ago. And what I noticed was that there is a huge need with a specific group of children to interact with nature. That is in the Mathare Valley slum in Nairobi, Kenya. There is no access to nature. There's no trees, there's dirty water. They don't have access to all of the beauty that Kenya has. I go over there and I go on safari and I get to enjoy seeing giraffes and elephants and rhinos and so on and so forth, but they don't know that. So the first time I was over there, I had a lady that was a teacher in broken Swahili ask me about an elephant, because I was bringing a book and I was talking to them about it, and the seed was kind of planted in my mind. So I started the conversation about how, what is your experience with an elephant? You're an educator, you teach, so on and so forth. So she looked at the picture and she looked at a bull elephant, which those of us who have been at a zoo, which is most of us. I used to be a zookeeper. That's one of my 8 careers. So anyway, she showed this picture and she thought that the elephant was this tall. She had no idea. So I will never forget her face when I said, "Oh, no. And in the moment, remembering that everywhere outside of the world, they use the metric system. So feet didn't matter to them. So I had to quickly do my math. And I was like, no, that elephant is 4 meters tall. And I'll never forget the look on her face when she just looked up at the ceiling thinking, it's unfathomable to her. And this woman is an educator, she's a teacher, but she doesn't have that background knowledge. She didn't have that experience. So a few years later, I went back and we took 500 kids out of the slum for the very first time, and we brought them to a world famous elephant orphanage. And it was one of the most impactful experiences in my life. And so my role with Pons Paraclete, founding that, is based on that interaction. based on how do we take kids, or the kids that I teach are typically from affluent families or comparatively in wonderful situations who have experienced seeing animals up close. It's right around the corner for them, and unless somebody else goes up to it, for the moment, they'll never have that opportunity. So I wanted to change that. So I'm going to go back to Africa next year, work again in Kenya, and then expand with the continent into Malawi. So you can go, there you go, you can go past that now. So I was thinking about a couple things. My first point is technology. I don't know how technology impacted you in the last 24 months or so, but as a teacher of elementary education, I had to get really good at talking about environmental stuff behind a screen. So my wife is a pre-K teacher. Imagine trying to teach pre-K students, 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, about letters when they're on the other side of the screen in their house with brothers and sisters and dogs and dishes and all those things, right? So I've been thinking about this a lot, and all right, that was not ideal. And part of it is this idea that technology and being outside and being in nature can sometimes clash with each other. The idea they're not like, oh no, we want to go outside to get away from that. And I think that's true. And it's absolutely something that we're trying to do in school, is saying, here, you don't need a screen, go experience it, come outside. It's awesome. And we see a lot of great opportunities for that. But how do we harness what we've learned in the last 20 months for our advantage? So here's what I mean. So as a school, we've been fortunate comparatively. We've been in school for 90% of days last year and 100% today. We haven't this year. We have not taken any time off due to COVID. But even last year, as a whole, 90% of days we were in person. But still, we had to be able to implement Zoom and Google Meet and virtual education. So I'm thinking about how do we continue to do that in a way that helps us. So one of the things that came up was, if you are partnering with a school, they're comfortable. They know how to use technology now. If they're coming to your zoo, state park, university, somewhere, wherever you work, if they're coming to you for a field trip or some other experience, touch base with them over technology first. Okay? Reach out, show them, give them a quiz online while they're eating lunch. Give them you can tape something and send it to, it doesn't have to be live. Take something at your house, send it to the teacher, and then they can fit that in as a nice little brain break for them. Hey, we're coming on this field trip. We're doing this activity. You're going to meet this person, and they want to say hi. They want to talk to you. Here they are. Okay. Again, that's a very general sense, but each one of you can apply that to your own respective area of harnessing and benefiting from technology, because we've all had to get better at it. We've all had to get better at talking over screens. So instead of totally shifting away from it, how can we use that for our advantage? Okay. Service projects. All right, so this is a big one. We're as a Christian school, we're always I focus on two things: sustainable outdoor education projects and something with stewardship. We are a service-minded group of people, and we're always looking to benefit something within our school or within our community. So what can benefit the school or your organization? So I'll show you some examples here in just a minute of stuff that we're doing in a particular grade that benefits the school as a whole. Okay, so again, for your state park, let's say that you have a group of students that wants to come visit Spring Mill State. Okay, what needs do your organization have that schools and students at a school can get behind and do something that gives them an educational opportunity, gets them something to do with their hands, and benefits something that you need as an organization? I'll give you two examples. This is our part of our outdoor education space. This is a few years ago. The first year I was there, the principal hired me to do the job. He used to teach at the Orchard School. I'm sure you're familiar with there. All right, there you go. So I knew somebody who did that. So because here's the thing, I've never taught at Orchard. I've been there a couple times, but their recently retired outdoor education coordinator Diana Shellhouse has been a personal mentor who works with me every week to grow our program, to do what Orchard's amazing program did in 30 years. We're going to try to do that in 10. So they have set the standard in terms of primary education as it relates to environmental education. So we're just following the trail that they've blazed. So anyway, that my principal used to teach there, and when his son came, they're like, I don't know, apparently they got like 15 fire pits or something, I don't know. So we don't have one. So this was a service project that we could say, all right, hey, we need this. So this is my group of 5th graders that said they learned, they studied how to build a fire pit. They designed, I gave them a lot of freedom to do it. They came up with a lot of designs that would have cost about $16,000 to do. Said, hey guys, welcome to the real world. I'm at a school, okay? So it doesn't go that far. So instead of paying somebody else to do it, guess what? We're going to get our shovels out and we're going to do it. And so this is the very first day of them starting to, this was 4 years ago. And now we have countless events at our fire pit throughout the year that those students who come back not only get to enjoy it, but they get to look at that and tell those other students, like, you know who used that shovel there? You know, there's a sense of empowerment and emotional connection to the school because they did it. So that's in general this. Let's show you another example. This is actually from this year. This was taken about a week ago. And this is just adjacent to that fire pit. So we keep adding to that area and taking in my passion and personal interest for global education. This is actually called a tippy tap. So not often found in America, where we have frequent access to hygiene and hand washing stations, but in 3rd world countries in Central, South America, Asia, or Africa, if they're out farming, they might not have that access to a nice bathroom. So build a tippy tap. So essentially how it works is it's just 3 sticks, a couple of ropes, and then this stick will fall down to close to the ground. All you do is put your foot on it like a pedal of a gas on the gas button of your car. When you push it down, there's a gallon of we're using a gallon of milk. Just fill it up with water, and you could use a laundry detergent bottle, any kind of bottle you want. But when you push that pedal down, the bottle pours out. There's a little hole on top, and you wash your hands. So this is very popular with our parents who are a little more COVID scared as well. They're like, oh, we're going to do stuff to keep my kids healthy. This is great. Let's not spread diseases. So we actually built one. There's the other one here. So we have one that's a little shorter for our younger students, a little taller for our older students. Very practical. It wasn't difficult to do. We just had some nails and some rope and found some sticks in the woods. They sawed the wood. It wasn't particularly challenging. But you better believe they were engaged, and they get to do saws. Come on. They were engaged. They were excited, and then every time that they go out to that fire pit, there's that reminder of, I did that. So those are the service-minded projects that I'm talking about. Just a couple of examples. I don't know if I have another one, but I don't. That's okay. We've also built a firewood rack outside at the fire pit, and not just the fire pit, but we have a garden that we do. So anyway, I could spend all day talking about just the service-minded projects that we have. So just think about that in general. Okay, know your audience. That's another one. So I have a varied background. I kind of mentioned it. I've had about 8 careers. I wish I was exaggerating. It's really not. I really have. So I've covered these 3 and a lot more. And so when you're speaking to a Christian school, so for me, us Christians, we have a sometimes kind of like the technology and nature kind of a clash a little bit. Christians can sometimes have that too. So we have a stereotype of what you all might think. Well, Christians look at environmentalists and say they're just tree huggers, right? They wear the tie-dye, and they just care about nature more than people. Well, I know that's not true, but there's a stereotype that exists both ways. So how do you communicate with, you want to partner, expand what you do to a Christian organization? Well, 2 words, use creation care. That's basically the Christian mantra for I want to take care of the environment. When you say creation care, they're like, you're speaking my language. And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Know your audience and speak their language, okay? An autism school. So I spent some time working in an area of special needs and working with autistic kids. Okay? Know your audience. So if you want to partner with an autistic school, Indianapolis has the highest density of autism schools of any city in the country. There's a ton of them. Okay, so you can open a whole portal of new opportunities and new partnerships and new organizations to work with. But working with autistic students can be hard, can be a little different, can be a little uncomfortable, and it's not the same as working with my students at Christian school. So what does that mean? Do your research ahead of time, but also knowing that if you want to work with an autistic school students, paring it down and making things as simple as possible is probably your best bet. Something complicated with a lot of language and verbiage, it's not going to work. So adapt your presentation, adapt your project to meet the audience that you have. Listen, it adds a little bit extra work, I'm not going to lie, okay? On the front end, you got to do a little research. You might need to talk to experts in that field. You might need to change what you do. But you'll reap the rewards, I promise. Okay? Inner city schools, same thing. So I'll use the example that I talked about for working with slum students in Africa. These kids had never left the slum before. And I'm talking about in a 2 square mile area, about 750,000 people. Okay? So that are crammed in this area. They've never left before. They've never been on a bus before. They've never seen what a road looks like outside of the road that goes right along the slum. They don't know what an elephant is. They don't know how to behave. When we went to a place, it's world famous because essentially when you go over to Kenya for a safari, you say, all right, I'm signing up for a 10-day deal. You have to acclimate into Nairobi first and go to the Serengeti or to the Masai Mara from there. Okay? This place, this elephant orphanage, exists for very wealthy people to have like a half-day experience before they go to the real safari. So it was a little uncomfortable for me at first because I'm bringing these students who have no idea how to interact in the real world because their world looks very different than us. And then all along the area to watching these elephants are these extremely wealthy Europeans, Americans carrying camera lenses that cost as much as my house. Okay, and so they're like, I'm just incredibly nervous. Like, what do you do? The third day we were there, we did it for 3 days. That's how we can get 500 of it. Somehow these kids and their charming nature, I'll never forget it. They were taking the cameras from these people and they were teaching them how to, the Europeans were teaching them how to take pictures of them. It was so cool. I don't know, apparently they know about maximizing student engagement more than I do. So, I'm not sure. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did you say that you're taking questions only afterwards?
I can take questions anytime.
Really? Okay, I've got a couple.
Good,
Are
shoot.
you acclimating to culture or the altitude?
Oh, a little both. More the acclimating to like jet lag and other things. And typically when you travel over there, there's not enough time for you to get there and then travel. So it's more just acclimating to, I'm on a new continent that looks very different. And so I'm acclimating to the schedule that we have. So typically you have about a half day. You get in early in the morning, and it's usually too taxing to go again on another flight to the Serengeti or to the Masai Mara or Saba or wherever you're going. So it's more, hey, let's put our bags down. Let's do something fun. Let's go to the elephant orphanage or a giraffe orphanage. Did you have another one?
Yeah, on the ticky tack.
Yeah.
How do you dry your hands, or am I just being a little too civilized?
Well, probably a little too civilized. So we're the water that comes out at the bottom, the hole is very, very small. So it's not drenching your hands. It's more just being able to kind of get a little hand rinse and then go from there. So I'm sure that if you did some, you could very easily adapt that idea of having, adding a bandana or a separate, a third. So you have typically you have a rope for the soap, you have a rope for the bottle, and then add a rope for a towel or something else too. So you can adapt it. All right, go ahead. All right, so I have this unique role where I work with students over the course of a whole year and even multiple years. So it's my job to teach one group of students across 7 grades normally, and then sometimes it extends beyond. So whatever you're doing with your school groups, field trips, so on and so forth, we put so much energy into one day, one event, and it adds a little layer of pressure for us, right? It's like, if this doesn't go well, then it's not going to work. Now, going back to my example in Kenya, I'll be transparent and own the fact that I had that same thing happen to me, and I got the greatest lesson of my life as part of this. But I spent months preparing to bring these kids to the Alpha Orphanage, and when I get there, it's only open an hour a day. They do this bath, they bring them out, so on and so forth. Okay, it's only open an hour a day. So if you're not there that hour, you miss it. I should have checked with our drivers for the other buses. They didn't know how to get there, even though it's in their city. It's only 30 minutes away. They got lost. 11 o'clock shows up and they're not here. I don't have a cell phone. I don't know how to get in touch with them. 11:05 and 11:10, 11:15, and I'm panicking. Like, I put all this energy and time into one day for these kids, and something goes wrong, and they miss out on that opportunity. Now, there's a whole other part of that story which I can share another time. But the idea being that if you put all your eggs into one day, and something out of your control happens, then you miss out on that opportunity. So, this may not be applicable for everybody in this room, but as a general thought, can you work with this school group of students something beyond just one day? Because if you do, it not only prevents, kind of cuts out if something happens, I haven't put all my eggs in one basket and I can just pick it up next week, but also the students know, all right, we're going to go in September to Springville State Park, we're going to go in November, so we're going to do these. It increases the student engagement. All right, so this is something I'm good at because I'm not a natural planner. So some of you are going to be like, yep, this is no problem for me. Others of you who are more of a planner than I am and who have a set curriculum that they want to stick to, this might make you a little uncomfortable, but go with me anyway. Okay, so I had to add this slide last night because yesterday during class, an opportunity presented itself. I had a choice to make. Thankfully, I have a teaching partner in 6th grade who doesn't have any problem doing it. So we pivoted. Instead of teaching something that we had planned to do, we went off script. Man, was it fun. Let me tell you that. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This is our 6th grade teacher. His name's Lowell Miller. This is our part of our wetland out in the back. He noticed the last few days, 2 days this week, there was a couple of deer right outside the window. I don't know, some bug caught him yesterday morning. He said, "Let's go stalk him. Let's go check it out." And I was like, "What? What was it? What?" I said, "No, let's go do it. Let's go see if we can get close to him." Okay, let's do it. So that's not what we planned to do. It was 8:30 in the morning. It was about 40 degrees. No, it wasn't 40. It was 35 degrees. We got students who are they're not awake yet. I mean, come on, okay? Get your coats on. Be quiet. We gotta stop. They're jumpy. They're antsy. You gotta, if you've been close to deer, they don't like to get close. They don't like for us to get close. Okay. So here we are, leaving the room, going outside, and I can only imagine what our other, so as the other wing of the building kind of goes perpendicular to where, parallel to where we're walking, I can only imagine the kindergarten through fourth grade teachers' windows who are facing what we're doing, going this. Bent over, like, what are these people doing? Well, this is what we're doing. So I don't know if you can tell, there are two deer right there. We were able to get really close to them and see them. This is about 40 yards from where we are. Okay, so there were 4 deer that morning. There was these 2, another one that trotted off, and then a large buck that was going the other direction. So the trotting went this way, the buck went that way. So we stuck with these 2, and then we just watched them for a little while and watched what they were doing, and the teaching opportunities were endless. So in the field, in the moment, we were able to look at their ears, and see how they're just turning like a satellite dish. Okay? And we were able to look in the ground for footprints and be able to tell, look, here's what it looks like this, so they're, which direction are they going this way? Now we had, and then finally when we came inside after 45 minutes or so, we were able to really talk at a decent volume and be able to connect with each other and talk about why we were able to do this. So there were a couple of environmental conditions that the wind was very powerful going this way. So we talked about how to approach animals that have a great sense of smell or a great sense of hearing. And it was wet yesterday as well, so the crunching of leaves that were very dry was not a problem. So those 2 things worked in our advantage. But they'd never have thought about those things. But as environmental educators, who I'm sure most of you have more experience in this realm than I do, you are experts in that. You could be able to teach those things very easily without any planning whatsoever. They're naturally in you. You've studied your whole life. You've lived that. So share. Okay. If there's one thing that I do on a daily basis that helps my program go forward, it's integration. What I mean by that is outdoor education is multidisciplinary. We use science as the keystone subject and integrate everything else. So for instance, that deer, let me think of an example. Let's go back to the tippy tap, okay? It's just a simple building project, but we're able to talk about where do tippy taps come from? Why do they exist? They can sketch and draw it from the very beginning. They can measure, okay? There's math, language, science, social studies. There's every subject. It's something as simple as a tippy tap. Okay? And integrating those into a project is ridiculously helpful. Of course, as a Christian school, we can integrate biblical integration as well. So take whatever you do, whatever you're interested in, and inject it into whatever project you're working. Okay? That I like to tell parents when they come to visit school, they're like, okay, well, what's this outdoor education? The easiest way I can explain to them what I do is I ask them what they do for a living. So they might say a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or stay-at-home mom. Somebody told me stay-at-home mom the other night. So, and she was almost like, just a stay-at-home. No. Super good. Okay. And as a stay-at-home mom, she's not just a mom. Think about all the skills that it takes to be a stay-at-home mom. You might run the finances. There's no end to the tasks that you have to do. So what I mean is, none of us work in a job that is a silo. None of us do. Okay? We all work in a job that requires talents and skills outside of our main skill area, even if it's just communication and teamwork, which is a huge part of what we do in outdoor education. Okay? So there is immeasurable opportunities to integrate social skills, typical academic curriculum, any of those things into whatever you're doing. The more hands-on you have, the more little areas that might connect to them, the better. Here's some examples. This is from earlier this year. So I had a teacher that said, we're reading The Tortoise and the Hare. Can we do that? Yes, yes, we can. Okay, so we have, now, I know for you animal people, you can point out, Mr. Wassner, and say, that is not a tortoise. You're right, it's a turtle. I know the difference, but I don't have a tortoise, I have a turtle. So this is just a simple integration, outdoor education. And we got to talk about animals and what makes a bunny and a rabbit, like makes them so fast. And a turtle, they're not built for this. Okay, so we got, but no, I promise you, this is real life. What I would say, the turtle actually won the race. So the bunny got distracted by all the people and wanted to be pet the whole time, and then slowly but surely, the turtle, I will say, with a little bit of cheese, did win the race, which was really funny because then the teachers got to go back and compare and say, okay, so we read the tortoise and the hare. Well, how did this that we just did differ or have similarities to the story itself? I don't know, like there's a whole set of mixed up fairy tale sort of deal. We talk about we do that at pre-cat, and it's kind of fun. So it was a real life example. Again, this is simple. Okay, I taped a couple of things on the floor. I just happen to have a bunny and a turtle. Okay, but I'll tell you, I know that like those kids are going to talk about this 2 years from now because they're going to remember, man, that bunny was just liked attention too much, which is a whole nother avenue we could have gone about seeking attention if it wasn't kindergarten. So, go ahead. That's my principal. So this is at our fire pit. So connected, man, I didn't realize how much this all weaves together. But this is we did Wizard of Oz as a musical at school last year. So it was a scarecrow, and we did Wizard of Oz themed activities around the fire pit. Mainly, don't get the scarecrow in the fire. Okay, but that's something that the students, including my daughter, she was in the musical, and so it connects to something else they're doing in class. So in general, whatever you do and whatever student group you're working with, whether it's a Boy Scouts or school or whatever, find out what they're working on, connect with their teacher first, and find out what they're working on, and somehow bring that into what you're doing there. Give them something that they can already connect to, and then you can go past that. Quick note on COVID. I left my phone here because I'm going to need something. So one of the best things I've heard is about what COVID did, and that is it accelerated or highlighted whatever direction your organization or your personal life was going. It didn't create a crisis, it just accelerated. Okay, so divisiveness obviously is rampant still. Okay, I promise you I'm not going to get political. Okay, except for one thing, and I'll cover that in just a second. There's one accepted universal truth that everybody, like, you're safe outside. I thought that was kind of funny as an environmental educator. Thinking, okay, like that's the one thing people can get behind. Restaurants, you can go to a restaurant, but you got to sit outside. There's never been a greater opportunity for us as people who already know the benefits of being outside, who already reap those benefits, who already talk about it on a daily basis. There's never been a greater opportunity for us to say, hey, this is what we're here to do. We already knew this. Come join us. We already knew that this was the thing. So I'm just going to read something real quick to you here. This is a blog that I wrote. I'll just read the first paragraph for an organization that is called Discover Horizons. They make outdoor themed shirts and another clothing. So here we go. Universal truths are hard to find. Our current world is divisive, leading us all seeking community and commonality. There are subjects and values which bring us together, but what unites some inevitably excludes others. It is simply hard to find common ground. But I'd like to suggest one simple universal truth. no matter your gender, race, religion, political affiliation, or age, we can all agree that being outside is a good thing. Whether it's a family stroll, reading poolside, hiking trails, trolling for bass, or biking on fresh pavement, the location, intensity, or activity isn't important. Simply finding ourselves outside affects our emotion, improves our mood, and restores our soul. Okay, you all know that. And I hope that we can continue to get better at communicating and showing other people what that universal truth that we're already aware of. That's it for my. So thank you for asking questions. Are there any other questions that I can help answer that might be pertinent to your organization or anything else that you'd like to share?
Can you repeat the questions? Can you repeat the questions when people ask them?
Yes,
For the
I
whole
will.
room? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
So next year, the student chapter has to do and of course, we're all or like this.
Okay, so the question for those that are virtual is, student chapter at Purdue, how do we engage students outside of our typical mold to be more engaged in that type of, come to a conference and be a part of that movement that they're trying to do and be a part of EEAI. Find common ground, okay? If you are, there's always something that links us together. So I would find whatever common ground you have as it relates to outside, environmental, seeking emotional connection. So I happen to be I'm just wired to always be listening and learning for something. And that's what, when I referred to it before about, it's a lot of work on the front end to do some of this stuff. I recognize that, to know your audience, it does take a little extra step to talk to the teachers, to work. It is an extra work. It is a little harder. But if you find one student, okay, we've all been in college, we know that, or even younger, that we tend to be, follow the group. Okay, if you can find one student, connect with them. Don't worry about getting 100 kids. Worry about getting one, and others will follow. That would be my advice. Anything else? Not brave enough to do it now. I promise I'll be here for a little bit so I can answer other questions as well. Yes, sir.
As the educator, the question, you had the picture of making the fire pit. You had one shovel and a bunch of people watching. Did you trade? Were you able to set it up so to trade around, or did you have a small group that did it and the others watched?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That was in my head, but I didn't communicate very well. So for the virtual crowd, the picture I had of the fire pit, he was exactly right. There's one kid with a shovel and everybody else watching. So if I was on social media, which I'll share that with you in a moment, that's what teachers would look at and say, oh, that's one student engaged. That's a lot. It's not a lot. Not engaged. So to answer your question, that is like the ribbon cutting ceremony where they have one guy that's like, and then everybody else is, that's the ribbon cutting. So it's like here's our first one. So I find that whenever we're doing projects, if we need small groups. So for the tippy tap and the fire pit, there was a group that was going to gather logs in the woods so that it could be brought back and cut down for the seating. There was a group of kids who were shoveling and then taking turns doing that. And there was more than one shovel, I promise. Okay. That's such a great point on student engagement occurs when they're busy, because if they're not busy, they're going to get into trouble. Believe me, I know. So that's such a great question. I thank you for answering it. I would recommend anytime you're working with the groups I was talking about, especially in the autism realm, the smaller the group with adult educators, the better. okay? One-on-one or two-on-one at most, okay? But you're absolutely right. Keeping kids busy is the best way to keep them engaged. And I'll tell you, even something as simple as go get some firewood or our firewood rack, like go find some sticks, then they don't get in trouble. So there's small groups and a lot of tasks. So going to the integration piece, if you're going to do whatever project you're going to do with the school, if you have a good example, we went to somewhere with first grade, I can't remember the name of the place, but they had one small group doing finding numbers in nature, math related activity, and another group of students that was doing a social studies culture related activity. So small groups always better. It keeps kids busy, keeps kids engaged. Switch to that. Thank you. Yes, go ahead. Good question. So for, again, if we don't have the luxury of one-on-one or two-on-one, and we just have one person, it's just us with a large group of kids, what do we do? Okay. I'll go back to what I said about the work beforehand. So we're working on something right now at school related to hell vendors and how hell vendors are very excited. So what gets those kids engaged in hell vendors is that they get to say hell, first of all. Second of all, they think it's really cool. They get to say snot, okay, in school. Like it's totally acceptable to say, I was talking about hell today, Mom. Like that's very cool, right? But it's just, but they don't have any prior knowledge or any experience with hell vendors. It's me sort of leading them that way. So what I have found to be the most effective strategy with a large group is if I'm trying to sell them on something that they don't care about, it's going to be a hard sell. But if I am working on a project that they have a little bit of ownership of, they can kind of police themselves, especially if it's an older group. They can kind of keep each other on task because they have a mission and a goal that they're trying to achieve. So it's this tricky balance of things where as an educator, I know what I want them to do. I kind of got to trick them a little bit to make them think it's their idea. You know what I mean? Like, yes, inception, there you go. It's okay. So yes, I'm trying to like, yes, this is really cool, but I don't know. We really want to do this. Yes, we do, Mr. Wassner. Okay, and like it's just a subtle trick of getting them to take ownership of whatever we're doing. And then that large group, to go into her point about like, how do I get all these students engaged? Just get one. If you get the right one, they'll all follow. So give them goals and tasks that they're manageable for that group. So if you've got a large group of kids and you can't be there right with them, give them something that they can do on their own. Kids like to be independent. They like goals. Challenge them. Hey, do you think you can get 10 pieces of firewood, like big firewood in like 1 minute? Go do it, you know? And just challenge them and empower them that they're part of something bigger. And I think you'll have some success. Yes?
Okay, with that same idea, how would you target older kids? If older interactions with my I think there's certain different ways.
Yep. So what age are we talking about?
Like college.
College kids. Okay, well, the first thing is to buy them beer. No, I'm just kidding. Pizza, yeah, right? Like, I'm gonna go with one thing. I'm sorry. College or high school. A lot of that stuff that I said is applicable, but do it this way, okay? What comes, the challenge that comes with older students, sorry, the question was older students, I didn't even clarify that. How do we engage them? The issue that we have, and I see even in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, it's like, there's a social piece to it. Like, is this cool? I gotta be cool, right? So how do I make going outside in nature cool? Okay, and something that other people want to do with us. Okay, to me, it's all about emotional connection. Okay, it's about learning what your students, even if they're college, if you're talking about adult education, why should it or why does it matter to them? And connect with them on one thing that you have together as it relates to outside. It could be something about how they went, their favorite vacation ever was in Colorado. As a kid, and they've not gone hiking since. Go hiking with them, you know? Connect with them outside of what you're wanting them to do first, and then go. Okay? But connection, emotional connection, and commonality is where, no matter the age group, finding our community and what we have in common will always lead to success. Yes, ma'am.
I taught at Blackbird Place, and that was favorite city kids. And they didn't know that much about the floor and fauna. Because they were, thrown out the cement and stuff. And it felt like they weren't connected, for a walk in the woods. So the first thing I was talking to them about was, I think the most important, this is what poison ivy looks like. One kids were using poison ivy with Virginia creeper. So I just stopped and said, how many of you play Minecraft? And I think everybody raised their hands. I mentioned the creeper person or character.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, Virginia creeper. Creeper Minecraft. And I made that connection. And I got all years because I made that connection with their video game. And then the second part is, I wanted to ask you, could you compare a slum with a ghetto? I'm an older white woman, and I don't think I've ever seen a slum, but I've seen a ghetto. I want to get an idea of what you would experience.
Sure. I'll address both those. One about the Minecraft and finding creeper. I don't have an example of that good. That's amazing. Okay, and so in education and especially, I think I hear a lot about it in church as well. Because I think about church when you attend, everybody's faith journey is like in a room this size. Even we're all at like way different points, right? Nothing to very far along, and so. We always say, meet them where they are. Meet them where they are. So if they're, if you got kids like that have never been outside, teaching very technical things and is not going to work. Okay. So set your expectation, know your audience, set your expectation, and know that I'm not going to get to the scientific names of these things today, and that's okay. I might just be able to connect with them on one thing. And they're just going to be able to enjoy being outside in a way that they've never done before. And that's okay. Knowing your audience and knowing where they are helps you set your expectations at a reasonable and appropriate level. And I don't know about the verbiage about a slum or a ghetto. I would, I'm going to just take a guess here. I'm not certain. But typically, I think it's more geographical in that in third world countries, ghettos are called slums, so I would say it's probably pretty similar. But the area that there's in Nairobi, Kenya, there's two main slums, Kibera on the west side and Mathare on the north side. And so it's just people who have had various bad luck experiences in their life or grown up there, usually make on a financial side about a dime a month compared to what we have. So what I have done is partner with other organizations that work within the slum, and then we have partnered with the schools that are there. So there's an organization called Missions of Hope International, and they have started schools within the slum and then also outside of that within the greater country of Kenya. And actually, I just was super excited that they came to visit 2 weeks ago. And they started their own environmental education camp on the coast. And so I gave them these students the experience of going to meet an elephant for the first time. But they just started this camp in Mombasa, which, if you're familiar with Kenyan geography, is on the coast. It's on the Indian Ocean. And so they take students from all over the country, bring them to Nairobi, take a train out to the coast, and these students swim in the ocean for the first time. Now, can you imagine that? I can't. Part of me is just thinking, how is the 21st century? These kids never been to a body of water that big. That's their reality. And so one of my goals next year, when I have a lot to do when I go over to Kenya next year, but one of my goals is to make it over there and see that amazing work. Because I can tell you from personal experience, seeing the faces of kids, when you know it, you've seen it, when something amazing nature happens, they got that look, they got that engagement, right? It's like, wow, can't pay enough for that. And I can't imagine the ocean. I saw with elephants and I can't see the oceans. So I think that's a beautiful example. Going back to your first point about Minecraft, every kid played. I can't say that game, but all my students like it, so I gotta sell them on it a little bit. So that's that common connection that we can have. It brings students in, even if something you don't care about, it's what they care about. Meet them where they are. Have a good lunch. So my time out. I'm not sure. Okay, my time is out. So if you have any other questions, if you pull back up the slide, there's my contact information on there. I'm active on social media most of the time for both my organizations, and then I have my emails up here. There you go. Get in touch with me. It was a lot of fun being here today. Thank you for that, and thank you for being able to make this discussion. Because, like I said, most of you in this room are probably more of an expert in environmental education than I am. So it's great to learn and have a discussion on that. Thanks. Yes.